Good evening, everyone. Great. On behalf of Mayor Catherine Pugh, thank you so much for coming out tonight for the fourth of 9 meet and greets with Acting Police Commissioner Michael Harrison. My name is Shantae Guy, and I will be your facilitator for tonight. Before we begin, there are a few administrative and housekeeping items that I'd like to share with you. Sign language services are available here to my left. To get to the restrooms, they are down this hallway and immediately on your right. Smoking happens at least 20 feet from this building. Tonight's an opportunity for all of us to get to know our new acting police commissioner better, and for him to hear your hopes and concerns as it relates to policing our community. For those of you who have signed up to speak tonight, listen for your names. I will call 5 names at a time so that folks can come up to the microphone here and be ready to share their thoughts with us and with the acting police commissioner. When you come up to the microphone, please remind us of your name and tell us the neighborhood you live in. Whether it's Berea, Oliver, Johnson Square, we want to hear where you come from. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. When your 2 minutes are up, you'll hear a timer sound. I'm sure that everyone agrees how important it is for the PC to hear from as many voices as possible. As such, I'm going to be working to make sure that voices who haven't spoken at the other forums have the opportunity to share their hopes and concerns with the PC. It's my intention to make sure that everyone who is signed up to speak gets called to the microphone. If you have a question but you'd prefer not to come up to the microphone, feel free to write your question down, raise your hand, and a City Hall staff member will bring it to the front. Join me in thanking Principal Dubai for welcoming us into her beautiful school. Thank you, Principal Dubai. In addition to the PC, we're joined tonight by Major Wells, Captain Edwards, and members of the Neighborhood Collaboration Division, including Sergeant Bennett and Officers Ayala, McCullough, and Rogers of the Eastern District. I'd also like to acknowledge Senator McFadden, City Council President Jack Young, Public Safety Committee Chair Councilman Brandon Scott, Councilman Robert Stokes, and Councilwoman Shannon Sneed. So with the administrative things out of the way, I'm going to ask Mayor Catherine Pugh to join me at the podium.
First, let me say Happy Valentine's Day. And thank you for all the candies and all the little gifts when we walked in. Yeah, this is so like this community. Thank you so much. And let me take a moment to welcome C.C. Harrison. C.C., would you stand up, please? C.C. Harrison is the wife of our to-be Commissioner Harrison. So thank you for joining us. As C.C. would say, they are a part of Baltimore. And I couldn't believe y'all walked in with no coats. Because, and the reason I share that with you all is because we did a Violence Reduction Initiative walk in the southeast section of the city on yesterday, and one of the things that the commissioner said was, I prayed that it would not snow. And thank God it didn't, because as you well know, they're from New Orleans. But let me just share a few things with you all. We are grateful that this family has decided to become a part of Baltimore, and we know that he's going to do a great job, and he would say to you that he doesn't get to do this work by himself. You know, it is really all of us. And one of the ladies expressed it to me as I was walking by. She said, you know, it's going to take the community working with us to help make this work. So thank you for acknowledging that. But let me just also share with you all, you know, you're in one of our 7 brand new schools that we cut the ribbon on this past year. And we're on target to open up 7 more this year. So that excites us. The other thing that I want to share with you all is that we have a lot of work to do around violence reduction. And I say it over and over again, one life lost in the city is one life too many. And those of you who have walked with us through the city know that we believe crime is intolerable in our city, but at the same time, we believe that it's all of our responsibility to make sure that we're doing in our communities and neighborhoods and reporting what we see so that the police can help us to do the work. The reason that we believe that we've made a great choice in this commissioner is because when I was advised by 5 other police chiefs around the country, they said to me, to the extent that you can find someone who is a change agent, find them, because your city needs a police chief. They said to the extent that you can find someone who is knowledgeable of the consent decree, that's another plus. He's knowledgeable. They're almost through the one in New Orleans. And to the extent that you can find someone who can reduce violence, and I can tell you that coming from New Orleans, they hold the record of the most reduction in a city last year. So I think that deserves a round of applause. That just didn't happen. That happened because technology was in place. We've got a big ask at the state to improve technology. As you all well know, when I became mayor, there were not even computers in our police cars. Am I correct, officers? And I went to the state and got $2 million to put computers in police cars in Baltimore City. They put them in police cars in 1997 in every jurisdiction but in Baltimore City. But we're there with that respect. We've got body cameras, but we don't have the technology platform that is required. And you all know that when I walked into the office, there was a consent decree that was not completed, was not done. I spent my first 60 days in office completing the consent decree because I believe it is what the citizens of Baltimore deserve, because we need a reformed police department, and so we have a change agent that's going to help us change the cultural behavior of our police department. We were 554 police officers down when I walked in the door. We were +3 year before last. We were -36 this year. But yet, we put our application online because before you had to come down to the police department to apply. And what happened? We used to get 50 applications a month. Now we're getting 60 applications a week. But now we got a log jam. And so I think the commissioner will share with you that we're going to put something in place to make sure that we are following everyone who applies to be a police officer in our city. We have certified our cadet program at the state level. Our high schoolers can come out making $35,000 a year, go into and then 2 years later, go into the academy. We want to grow our own. So we've got a lot of work to do. But it is all of us. And our violence reduction initiative, I want to say thank you. I see some of my team members here. Thank you all. They get up every day. They are 8 a.m. every day, meeting on how we reduce violence in our city, holding each other accountable. But we've got to put the technology in place. We've got to give our next commissioner all the tools that are needed. We settled the contract so that we're now back to 5 and 2 and some 5 and 3. It cuts down on overtime, but it allows our officers time to spend with their families. But we want our officers to be among the highest paid in the state because this is a tough job. That's right. Yeah, we want to be competitive with the rest of the state. So you'll hear how our officers now, coming out of the academy, make between 51 and 53. I'm not quite sure what that is, but it is comparable to our surrounding jurisdictions. And we want everybody to know that we believe in patrol because they're the backbone of our department. And so we're putting incentives in place to keep our individuals who are really learning the communities in place to help us patrol our neighborhoods and our communities. With that, I want to say thank you all for being here. You didn't come to hear me, you came to hear from the commissioner. But more importantly, you all, not only does he want to share, he wants to hear from you all. Thank you again for being here this evening.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Next, we'll hear from City Councilman Robert Stokes of the 12th District and Councilwoman Shannon Sneed of the 13th District.
Good evening. I just want to thank God for being here, and I want to welcome the community for coming out on a cold night. So how important it is to hear the commissioner and he listen to some of the issues and concerns you have here in the city. And he's a wonderful commissioner. I truly support him. I was very fortunate to go to New Orleans, and I learned a lot. And when we went down to New Orleans, we knew they were talking about one individual. It was Commissioner Harrison. So I want to just say to you, thank you for coming here and work here in Baltimore and make the change. But he's here to listen to what your concerns are. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So I'm the last one, and I just want to thank all the community members for coming out from all over the Eastern District. This is an important day for us, an important night for us. Make sure you all ask all the questions that you want to ask. You heard them. If you don't want to get up, please pass over your postcards to anyone. You text me, because a lot of you guys have my phone number, and I'll get up. Let's make sure all the questions are asked so no one won't feel like they weren't answered. So thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for having it. And I just want to acknowledge that since we're in Berea, our community president is here. Can you stand up for 1 minute? I'm sorry. Ms. Lenora Monroe is the community president for right here. All right? Thank you all.
Thank you. Now I'll turn it over to the PC.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much. This is so important, and I'm so happy that you're here. And I want to make sure I hear your concerns. I'll tell you a little bit about me, but it really is more important for me to hear from you, to know what your concerns are. So, Mayor, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for bringing us all together in such a really robust and speedy way. This is so important. I want to thank you to all of our council members. Mr. President, thank you so much. All of our council members. I have been working and meeting with each one of our council members every day this week. And I think I'm just about with all 14. Maybe tomorrow we'll wrap that up, but I've had the pleasure of meeting with all of them. I met with our commander and assistant commander personally today. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you all for the sacrifice that you make to serve in this profession, to answer the call to this noble calling. We appreciate you. And thank you to all of you who are all here, part of the Baltimore family and the Baltimore community. And thank you for welcoming us into your family. But last but not least, I have my wife here, who I've been with since we were teenagers, 15 and 13, who gave up a wonderful career to join me here and is now sharing her Valentine's Day with all of you. I love you. That's a wonderful way to spend Valentine's Day, huh? Boy, that's commitment for you there, boy. But thank you. So we've been together all of our lives, born and raised in New Orleans. We were fortunate to have two blessed children who are now grown. My son's 25, my daughter is 21, away in college. And I had a fortunate 28-year career with the New Orleans Police Department. Started at 21. Joined, went to the toughest assignment. Many of you know what that's like. I asked for it, they gave it to me. Worked in a number of assignments, worked my way to the narcotics unit, so the mid-90s. We all remember what the 90s were like in American policing, with the height of the crack epidemic, what American policing was like. And even then, what I found myself doing, as often as I was finding myself in the presence of drug dealers, I was finding myself in the presence of corrupt police officers. And even then, I had no problem doing what was necessary to make sure we got them out of our department. That kind of work, I was working with DEA and FBI at the time, got the attention of the chief who promoted me to sergeant, put me in internal affairs and asked me to take that skill and continue to do the same thing. And over the next 9 years, that's exactly what I did. Worked within the police department to make the police department a better department during tough times, to find people who should not be in that department and make sure we did what was necessary to get them out. That got the attention of the chief who promoted me again to commander, put me back over narcotics where I was once a young officer, now I'm the commander over narcotics, vice, intelligence, gang enforcement, So I understand how all that works. Then I left and went and took over a district, which was the most challenged district in the city, the biggest rental and homeowner population, but it was extremely challenged, isolated by water, so really, it was just us out there, and we really had to really do everything we could. We reduced violent crime 2 of the 3 years I was there, which got the attention of the mayor, who promoted me to chief, over the deputy chiefs. So if you ever think it's possible, it is. With hard work, with faith, with education, and with trust in each other, and working well within the community, anything is possible. I'm a living example. So, I'm the chief in New Orleans, 4 years with Mayor Mitch Landrieu, working with what's called NOLA for Life and the Group Violence Reduction Strategy, which is a multidisciplinary approach to dealing with reducing crime, much like we're doing here in Baltimore, looking at everything from poverty to education, skills, the lack thereof, jobs, the lack thereof, mental health, drug abuse, substance abuse, housing, economics, you name it, we were dealing with it. And it wasn't just me, it was that holistic concept with good leadership that allowed us to reduce crime. But we also had a reform effort in place called the Consent Decree in New Orleans, 492 paragraphs, 18 core items, a holistic makeover of a police department. Over the course of 4 years, we were able to do that, and when I left, the department was hovering somewhere between 90 and 93% compliance with all 492 paragraphs. And then I had the wonderful opportunity to get a call with this job from Mayor Pugh, and I'm eternally grateful for this wonderful opportunity. And I said yes to it. But we made sure, before I said yes, that we would have the resources, because I think I asked about that a few times. Yeah. If we would have the resources necessary for you to be successful, for me to be successful, and that we could do our jobs and deliver the best quality police services. And I told her, as much as you want to talk about what I need, I wanted to talk about what the officers need. And she made that promise to me, so I said yes. And last week, my wife and I drove up 2 days, and we now live here in Baltimore. So thank you for welcoming us into your family. And so, I've been around, I've done a number of things. I'm fortunate to have made a big investment into my academic and professional career, have a master's degree in criminal justice. I taught college at the college level for 4 years, teaching criminal justice before I accepted the New Orleans Police Chief job. I was on a couple of boards, the Major City Chiefs Association Board of Directors, where I was leading 19 other police departments as their representative in the central part of the country. I'm on the National Law Enforcement Immigration Task Force, making sure that the forward-leaning, really positive, progressive chiefs come together to create the appropriate kind of legislation and the appropriate policies that show the federal system that policy actually hurts us here in cities. And so we're working to make sure we're always doing the right thing for the right reason. So that being said, I really want to stop talking about me, and I really want to take an opportunity to hear from you. And so Shantae is going to help us with that. And at this time, I am eager to answer any of your questions. And once again, thank you for being here with me tonight. Excuse me, one thing, Madam Mayor. We have police officers here that are in uniform. So thankful that you took time out to be with us. We have police officers and other civilian members of our police department that are civilians that are here. But we have 3 members of our recruit class, recruits, that are in the police academy that took time. You stand up just for 1 second. This is the future of Baltimore. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Acting Police Commissioner Harrison. So as he mentioned, now it's time to hear from you all. When I call your name, please come up and form a line in front of the microphone. Share your hopes, your concerns, and your issues with the acting PC. Remember to introduce yourself and tell us what neighborhood you live in. The first 5 names are Bernard McFadden, Marcus Dent, Charlene Bourne shared a question with me, and I'll be reading that on her behalf. Laura Richards, Harold Bennett. Yes, sir, your comment?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Bernard McFadden, as y'all just heard. 2 things, accountability and crime, period. Juvenile, whatever. That's what I want. Zero tolerance, if that's a term I can use. But the accountability, you have a detective in your department that is derelict in his duties. I'm a father of 2 murdered sons. One in particular is the detective that I'm talking about, supposed to have been investigating. I haven't heard word one from this man in over 4 years. And in the 8 years since my son has been murdered 3 times. And each time he only tells me what he has had since day one. And I said to him, if you're doing your job, you should have a little bit more than what you had day one. He's not fit to be a police officer, much less a detective, in my opinion, honestly. Because I can call him and I don't get an answer. Everything goes to voicemail and his voicemail always full. In 8 years, same thing.
First of all, thank you for bringing that to me. And let me say, we're all sorry for the loss of your sons.
Thank you.
Accountability-driven leadership. Remember that term.
Right.
I want you all to remember that term. Accountability-driven leadership. It is about putting systems of accountability in place that lets us know what we don't know. In other words, we want to be able to know when people are performing well, when they are not. Some of it's with technology, but a lot of it's going to be with grooming, cultivating, developing, coaching, and mentoring people to be good supervisors, good managers, and good leaders, so that we know when our people are not performing well. And then we do what's necessary and take the appropriate action when they don't. And then when supervisors don't take the appropriate action, the managers know to take an action against them. And so it's really about who did what when did they do it, how did they do it, if they didn't do it, who knew about it, what did they do about it, what am I going to do to them if I find out they didn't do anything about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, true. And I made a complaint to the colonel down in homicide. And that was like 4 years ago. And then when the detective did come see me, he had an attitude because I got in touch with his superior officer. And I said to him, well, if you was doing your job, I wouldn't have to go that route.
Well, I can't speak to what happened before. What I can tell you going forward is that we're going to have those systems of accountability in place that compel people to perform at a high level, and those that don't, there will be consequences. And for those that don't supervise and manage well, there will be consequences. Because it is our goal to make sure that we perform at a high level. Yes, we're in a consent decree, and yes, there are things that we're supposed to do by federal mandate. We want to be good because good is good to be. True. And we want to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And we're about reforming this department, but we're committed to making sure that we develop the best officers and detectives that can be competent and compassionate at the same time, so that we can investigate thoroughly, fairly, and justice can be served.
I would like for this city to be safe like it was when I grew up in. You know, where I can sit on my porch and don't have to worry about gunshots or some child being shot or anything being done that's not within the confines of the law.
And we're working on that as well, making sure that we change the minds of why people commit these crimes, especially with guns and especially young people on the front end, and then working to create consequences that make them choose differently about carrying guns and using those guns. And let me just be clear. It's not about how severe the punishment is, it's about how certain the punishment is. And that's over a 100-year concept, and it's still around. It's about how certain that makes people think and make better decisions. We're working on that.
Thank you for the comment, Bernard.
Thank you.
Good evening, good evening.
Good evening.
A little taller. I'm Marcus Dent, come from
Good evening.
Bel Air Edison community. I'm actually the chairman of the PTO here at Fort Worthington Elementary Middle School, and we welcome you to our humble abode.
Thank you.
All right. So, what is your perspective, your plans, and your strategy to utilize, educate, and employ the greatest resource that you have, which is the residents? You see we had Berea, Fort Worthington, Oliver, Bel Air, Edison, everybody from the Eastern District and some of the northeastern parts are here tonight because we're committed, concerned, and also we're here to care about what's going to happen to our people moving forward. From a school perspective, we want to know how can we educate our babies in the future that, hey, Officer Friendly is here. Make sure you know you can talk to your officers. Because again, from a community policing perspective, we're very concerned on what your strategy is going to be to come out, get into everyone's quote-unquote face to make sure they have that trust, that transparency moving forward, and also to make sure that we as community can echo what you guys in the department are doing, because at the end of the day it's going to take a collaborative effort so that we can truly have crime reduction. So what is your strategy in part to employ and utilize your resources that you have right here in front of your faces, community members?
Good questions, great points. And so when we talk about strategy, the first part of the strategy is listening to you, getting the information about what's important to you and the citizens of Baltimore and the residents of Baltimore. So it's almost like a doctor prescribing treatment. You first have to assess the patient. Otherwise, I might be prescribing something for your heart that I really should be prescribing for your mind. So the first thing is about finding out what it is that's important, what we need, who we need, and then how to go about getting what we need and who we need. But very good. Now, what about the babies? First thing we have to do as we work to reform and transform our thinking to make sure we're performing at a high level and giving you the quality service you pay for, you expect, and you deserve, we have to make sure that we are not altering the perception of the children by demonizing the police at home and teaching the children that we're the enemy. When we do that, we're reinforcing that, and no matter how good we get there, we'll never form that trust. We want to be here to help. We want to be partners. And as often as we can be in schools, we want to be there. Then we have a cadet program. So for all of our young people, middle school age on up, please come join our cadet program. And we want to partner with you and show you a side of the police that you probably don't know. And then help keep you from making bad decisions that disqualify you from becoming a police officer. And then we are working on what most people don't know, something real special that we're going to release and reveal to you real soon to attract, recruit, hire, and train the best and brightest from Baltimore. That's on the way, but I can't tell you too much, but stay tuned.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to the
Thank
surprise.
I told Marcus I was going to pull on his jacket if he took more than 2 minutes. Hi, my name is Charlene Bourne, and I live in the Barclay community, and I'm the president of Eastern District Community Relations Council. And I say welcome to the great Eastern District.
Thank you.
My question and my concern for Eastern District is, when will patrol be at 100%? I believe that if you're a police officer and we're paying you to carry a gun and we're giving you that salary, you should be in patrol. I believe administrative things could go to civilians. Police should be outside policing.
Very good point. Thank you. And so one of the main concepts that I've shared with the mayor and that I've shared with all of the council members that I've met with this week and will be sharing with the remaining council members is the concept of civilianization. That I did in New Orleans in my first few months, and then we did it over the next couple of years also, and we'll do it again, where we find positions that police officers are performing that really should be professional staff. And then we can either consolidate assignments, collapse assignments and eliminate them because we don't need them, or redirect them to civilian hires because they can actually do it, then free us up to go back into patrol.
Yes.
That's on the way. That's already happening before I got here, but we're going to enhance that. It will continue to happen. Now, you say, when will it be at 100%? That's about recruiting, hiring, and training, which takes time, which we're working on in a very robust way. I just told the gentleman, stay tuned. You're going to see something really special come to target the people from the Baltimore area. So that's coming. The department has many factions and different things that have to be done. So 100% of our personnel cannot be in patrol. There has to be an investigative capacity. There is some support capacity and managerial capacity. So 100% can be in patrol, but of the patrol you're talking about, we want to make sure that we are adequately staffed to get to you in speedy time when you call, and then allow you to see us patrolling when you're not calling, so that you're safe, but that you actually feel safe.
All right,
All
thank
right?
you.
Thank you.
How you doing? My name is
Good evening.
Carl Bennett. I'll say this again to you. Welcome to Baltimore.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome to Baltimore. I live in Broadway East community.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know if you patrolled this area or checked it out at all, but I'll give you an example of what my situation is. The drug boys, they stand in large numbers on the corner today on my way out. I noticed the officer was riding down a side street. Instead of turning to the left where he knows they congregate 24 hours a day, he made a right turn and then another right turn and went on up Milton Avenue. Another time I come out the house, I live right in that same area. I noticed the animal control came up to pick up the stray pit bull after the officer had sat there for 20 minutes to wait for animal control to pick up this pit bull. Behind him, right around the corner, the same crew is pitching 24/7. When I came back through, the same pit bull was standing on the corner. The same crew that was pitching was still pitching. So why are they avoiding, the police officers, confronting these young people, knowing that they're there? They've been there for 4 years, doing the same thing, at the same corners, all day, all night, selling drugs. Now, the people that still live in this certain area, of those that are still there, can't even enjoy their property or their neighborhood. You can't sit out front no more on the steps. Baltimore is known for that. You can't park your car out front anymore because they place the drugs under your car. They lean all on your car. When are you guys going to clean up this one area?
Thank you for bringing that to us. This is a common thing that I've heard in a number of these meetings that we've been to. And multiple citizens are saying this as well. And so there are a number of things that we're working on. First of all, we're working on bringing more officers in. We're working on getting more supplies, but we're working on changing the way we think and recreating the department that performs at a high level. And we're working on strategies to attack the drug problem while not taking away from the response to other crimes that citizens call us for. And so while I don't know why that officer didn't engage that day, certainly talking to the commander, they assured me today in our meeting that they are engaged. They are making a number of arrests for guns and for drugs. I can't speak to that one incident, but I can assure you that it is my directive to them to be extremely proactive, but in a very constitutional way. And we're working with all the commanders and with a number of detectives to identify what locations are chronic locations for drug activity and prostitution and other illegal crimes. And we're working to put plans of action to attack that. But we want to make sure we're not taking away from the services that the citizens need when they call us. But I promise you we're working on that.
One more thing I want to say. Now, I've been speaking about this for the past 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
I have not seen any improvement. He even kicked in my door and locked me up. Thank you.
Can I ask you one question? Have you been able to have communication directly with the commander in your district?
I've gone to Eastern Police Station at least twice through the years to talk to them about the situation.
Okay.
And I haven't seen any improvement. It's just constantly getting worse. The whole block that I live in is almost vacant completely because people can't live there.
I'm giving you my commitment that those are high priority things that we'll be working on. We know that, first of all, that drug activity is connected to all the violence. It's connected to the money, it's connected to the violence, and it's connected to all the quality of life issues that all of us in this area are experiencing. So it is something that we're working on, because to attack that helps clean up the rest of it. It's all working together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am?
I'd like to say welcome,
Thank you.
Commissioner Harris, to you and your family to Baltimore. I think that we need to start at the grassroots level of trying to get trust, and I think you had mentioned that, to restore a relationship with our police officers and the people in the community.
Yes.
And I know with all this crime, unequivocally, I can say that a lot of the residents know who is involved in this crime, but they're not saying anything out of fear. And this, we need to change that whole mindset of getting people involved and be able to say something when they see a crime and not just sit back or turn their heads the other way. So this is one of the things that I see. There's so many issues, but I just want people to know to get involved, and they don't want to get involved. But when it hits home, they want other people to say who committed a crime on their family or what have you. So I would like to see a restoration, more or less, of the residents and the police officers, and of course there's other people who have to be involved. And I know this is not an overnight thing. I know you have to take it step by step, but this is what I'd like to see happen.
Thank you, and you bring up so many good points. So many good points. Thank you. Look, working with this command staff and with these officers and with our mayor's office and all of our city departments, you know, we were walking through neighborhoods yesterday, and every week there'll be a different neighborhood. But it is really all about all of us coming together and knowing each other, knowing the officers who patrol your neighborhood, but the officers, you need to know the citizens who live in the neighborhood. Now that's a community policing initiative that is at the core of our mission statement, our fiber. Everything that we do has to be about community policing, so that we know each other, so that those relationships are built, so that you would not be afraid to pass on information because you know us, and that we'd be willing to accept that information and then act upon it and then report back to you what's done about it. Now, when I talked to the commander today, they were telling me about the district meetings that are not well attended. I need all of us to be good partners in your neighborhood associations, connected to the commanders, connected to the officers and supervisors, whether it's at the meeting or whether you invite them to meet anywhere else. We're always willing to do that, but we are working on deployment strategies that create free time that will allow them to perform more of those walking assignments and really highly engaged interactions in these neighborhoods so that you will get to know them. Right now, they're inundated with calls, and we are being everything to everybody, and right now we're responding to almost everything. Coming to work, they're already backlogged with calls. Leaving work, they're backlogged with calls. So with this technology improvement, you heard the mayor say will be coming, that we will build. There's smart initiatives that you'll see us create that create free time. And that free time will build back into smart initiatives like walking patrols, community policing engagement initiatives that allow us to build those relationships. And so that's here, but certainly we want to make it a lot better. And that's what's coming. And that's what we commit to you.
The next 5 names are Betty Robinson, Alex Long, Bayless McLeod, Karen Boone, and Donald Gray. Please step up to the microphone.
Good evening, Commissioner Harrison.
Good evening.
Shantae, everybody else, all the city council people that I have known over my 40-plus years in Baltimore. My name is Betty Robinson. I actually live in Mayfield, which is up about around Bel Air and Hartford Road and Erdman, so it's not very far. I am a member of the Civilian Review Board for Baltimore City. So my one question, if you don't mind, I want to ask people, how many of you know what the Civilian Review Board is and what it does? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to just say 2 sentences about it, and then I wanted to ask Commissioner Harrison about the New Orleans system. So the Civilian Review Board was created in 1999 by the state of Maryland. And there is a board that sits in Baltimore City. We meet the 3rd Thursday of every month. The meetings are open to the public. We actually go Facebook Live with some of our meetings as well. But we take the complaints that people have against officers for excessive force, abusive language, harassment, false arrest, and false imprisonment. So we read the complaint, and then we investigate. There's a staff that works for the city that investigates the complaint, and then we learn what to do with the complaint, basically. The police internal affairs department also investigates the complaint. We look at both records, and then we make some decision. But the problem, there's a bunch of problems. We don't have a lot of power. We don't have good communication with the commissioner. So if we recommend a certain kind of discipline, we don't necessarily ever learn what happened to the case, that kind of thing. So this is I did a little research on New Orleans. So they have something called the Office of Independent Police Monitor, and I would love for us to hear from you. What do you think about civilian accountability for police conduct, and how does the system in New Orleans work?
Thank you for that. It's very important to have community input in everything we do, and certainly we do not have any objection to civilian oversight and civilian input. In New Orleans, there is a concept called the Independent Police Monitor, an office that was created with a monitor who is an attorney, with a whole staff and team of individuals who receive complaints but don't investigate. Okay. But they monitor the internal affairs process and have real-time access to be a monitor to the process on use of force and other serious allegations lodged against police officers. And the Independent Monitor's Office, at least during the time I was the chief, was allowed to sit in all of the disciplinary hearings and was allowed to make recommendations that I took under advisement. Although as the chief, I would make the final decision on discipline, which followed a disciplinary matrix. I believe here in Baltimore, certainly we welcome recommendations, but as long as discipline is fair and just and follows the matrix and actually fits the violation and is not overly punitive, but actually fits the violation, then certainly we welcome input.
Well, I think we're looking forward to having you come to one of our meetings for sure, and to figuring out how we can improve our system overall.
And then open lines of communication and transparency are paramount. Yeah. It really serves no purpose to be involved and not know whatever happened.
Right, exactly, right. Exactly. Thank you so much. And welcome.
Thank you.
To you and your wife.
Alex? Bayless, you're after Alex.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
My question, excuse me, isn't necessarily for you directly. It's more to the audience. I'm a violence interrupter for Safe Streets. I'm actually housed down in McElgie Park.
Thank you.
2312 Miami Street. We also run a youth boxing group. And I noticed a lot of the questions tonight was geared towards the police, ramping things up. And I just want to remind the community real quick that we tend to forget that we kind of place too much at y'all's foot, and really remember why most of these kids are out here doing what they're doing. Prison isn't the answer. Sorry about that. This a little bit better?
Yes, thank you.
All right, but I really want to say that we really put too much faith in the police and hope that y'all solve our problems. When a lot of our issues really start at home. Systematically, things always been what they were, and it seems like they're not gonna change no time soon. But we really do have an opportunity ourselves to start sparking that change in our kids. Most of these guys living under a false pretense that killing each other a gangster, that's the thing to do. Somebody told them that. So I really want to get back to the people that's out here, to the community that have some type of pull, to these guys that's out here in the street. We all are tired of the losses. I lost my sister not too long ago, so I'm speaking from personal experience. but we have nothing else. This is a lovely school, and I appreciate that it's here, but we really do need more. You know, so we really got to give our kids more opportunity and not depend on y'all, because we really only giving them one option, and that's to meet y'all. Thank you.
Man, such a good point. And thank you for what you do. Let me assure you that we are working on giving these kids opportunities. As a matter of fact, we were this morning, in a meeting, talking with all the university presidents and vice presidents in Baltimore. And just this morning, we were talking about the opportunities to give kids this summer compared to where we were last summer. And I think right now the capacity is somewhere around 8,000, but at 13,000, with 3 or 4 more weeks left for kids to sign up to get jobs. So we believe when it closes, it will be probably closer to 20. And the mayor charged those university presidents to hire those kids. And so we're working on that. But you are so right. A lot has been put at our feet when a lot of it is a lot of issues that happen long before we are ever called. Now, we will do our part and make sure we create the kind of police department that's responsive, that's courteous, that's professional and thorough, and then working with our smart legislators to make sure we have solid and certain consequences to help them make good decisions on the front end. But all of it's working together. And yes, we're working to give them more opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bayless McLee. I would like to personally welcome you to Baltimore.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Bless you.
I'm a resident, proud resident of Bel Air, Edison. And I work with an organization, One Mission. And our mission is to improve the lives of returning citizens, increase public safety,
yes, and
decrease recidivism,
yes,
which is very broad. And I'd like to thank the mayor for establishing the African American Male Community Engagement Organization. Thank you. Community engagement and community policing are different.
Yes.
Different.
Yes.
My organization, we're on the streets in the community every single day, engaging people like myself. Yesterday, I was part of the problem. Today, I'm part of the solution. So here's my question. What will you do to engage the community? Very important. Very, very important. Public safety and the opioid epidemic are entwined. I have a history in substance abuse treatment. We treat both the mental health and the substance use disorder simultaneously. In order to treat the opioid addiction, the public safety piece have to be addressed together. Community engagement, Commissioner, is huge.
Sir, what's your question?
My question is, do you have a plan for community engagement? What's your plan?
I do. Now, of course, the plan is a very long plan. We can't go into all of it, but what I can tell you is hearing from you, like I told one of the other speakers earlier, is the first part of the plan, knowing what's important to you. But what I can tell you is that just today, also, we talked to those presidents of the universities, especially those universities that have hospitals attached to them, and medical facilities, to make sure that they are part of our plan to deal with opioid addiction and mental health, and that we don't criminalize those individuals that we come into contact with dealing with mental health and addiction and criminalize it when it's really a public health issue, and that we have, number one, the appropriate places to bring them when we come into contact, and the appropriate resources to offer them. And then we were talking about how to get together with the hospitals of this city and other service providers to make sure all of that's working so that we're not criminalizing it. Now, part of community policing, which is a philosophy, not a program or a plan. Community policing is a way of thinking. And so a lot of people really look for it to be a plan that you can measure. It is a way of thinking about how we deliver services, how we engage with people, how we receive information, give information. Now, what you're talking about are initiatives that come out of the philosophy. And there are all types of initiatives, like engagement. Engagement is an initiative. And that can be done in many ways. It can be done in walking beats. It can be, this is a community engagement. And so there are all types of engagements. But the philosophy is part of our core mission. It is about reshaping and changing the entire way we think about working and building relationships with our community. Just like we were with the college presidents today, with faith-based community, with all type of activist groups, with community neighborhood associations. Whether we bring information to you or you bring it to us, it's all part of our community policing philosophy.
And one other thing.
Yes.
What's your position on community returning citizens coming back?
It is extremely important, because if we're not creating productive individuals and giving them opportunities to be productive, we're actually helping them to go right back into recidivism. And so it is extremely important that we give equal treatment to returning citizens, just like we put emphasis on preventing people from committing crimes in the first place. They work hand in hand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gray?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'd like to start by saying that the most highest calling is to give your life to someone else.
Yes.
So you guys, I salute you all.
Yes.
Having said that, Commissioner, we all know about the killings on the streets. We all know that everyone in here has either lost someone close to them, a family member, or someone they know. Now, I know a lot of things start at home, but what I wanted to find out is, in order for the streets to change, your department has to change. You have to start within. I'm not indicting all policemen, but it's got to change for things to change on the street. I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I got 10 grandchildren I worry every day. I'm not worried about myself. When I was young, and things were wild in '96, but they didn't make one gun. They did made more than one gun when they made one, so I was young and crazy. But I'm an old man now, and I worry. So my question is, are you going to police your police?
Yes.
The answer is yes, and first of all, thank you for that. The answer is absolutely yes. It's what I've been doing my whole career. I was policing police when I was just a policeman, much less the chief. And so the answer is yes. That's what this whole consent decree is about. Holistic reform and changing everything about this police department. There's 510 paragraphs about things we got to change. And we're on the way to doing that. That was already on the way when I got here, and that's exactly what we're going to do. But we're not going to do it because the federal government is telling us to do it. We're going to do it because it's the right thing to do. We're going to do it because we want to do it. We got to get better because we need to get better, right? You pay for it, you expect it, you deserve it, so that's what we're going to give you. And we're going to change because we want to change, and we want to make ourselves a better police department. And yes, we will police ourselves, and we will have measures of accountability that hold people accountable at every level. Not just when people do things wrong, but when people find out and fail to do the right thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Good evening.
I commend you, sir. I commend you guys, everybody, your officers. Y'all have a real challenging job. Take my hat off to y'all. I have respect for you guys. For everybody here, I would like to give y'all the challenge, and I would like for y'all to do what I've done today. Could y'all stand up, please? These are my grandkids. Could y'all stand up, please? And I had them come because I want them to have the experience of meeting this gentleman and the officers face to face, and to see they're more than just people enforcing the law, but they are people too. You know what I mean? And they are the next generation. So, you know, y'all need to have your young people come out here and you know, and be engaged like we're engaged. That's the only way we're gonna make a change. Now, to you, sir, and to you officers, I say again, I take my hat off to you guys, because y'all have a very challenging job, extremely challenging. On one side you go too far, on the other side you don't go far enough. I live here in Baltimore. I was raised in East Baltimore. I grew up in this community when, those of you who know, when 2 guys was out there. So y'all know about that, right? Right, when the AMP. So the crying thing and the shameful thing is that when 2 guys was there, people of color couldn't go past 2 guys without getting in trouble or without looked upon a different way. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, that community was a nice community. It was a good community. One of the challenges I feel as though you officers and you have is that criminals who break the law, who come from a generational family of criminals. You know what I mean? And that's a big challenge. You know, because they are already being taught, like you said, from the beginning, that, you know, the officers, are your enemy. I mean, that's wrong. But what I'd like to know is, how do you plan to combat that? How do you plan to challenge that? And the other thing is this. And once upon a time, the city had 0 tolerance enforced by officer, enforced by the mayor. That was extremely where officers had the ability to go to the extreme. I'm gonna tell you a personal experience that I had that I couldn't believe.
Sir, I'm not sure if you heard the timer or not.
Yes, I did.
And we want to make sure that he addresses the question that you have.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
So I think I heard you mention that you're interested in the PC's perspective on generational issues that have impacted our city.
Yes, I did.
And also, I think I heard you mention that you're interested in his perspective on 0 tolerance policing. Is that right?
You're good.
Thank you. PC?
Man, we come a long way short of giving my wife cupcakes, man. Thank you. That's right. No. Good question, sir. We're going to combat that with your help, because that can't just be on us, because that is reaching the minds of the people when we're not around. And so we will engage all of our young people, and thank y'all so much for coming. I love y'all. Thank y'all for coming. We will engage all the young people. I challenged one young man last night who asked me would I meet with him. I say, I'll promise to meet with you, only if you bring 100 other kids back with you when you want to meet. And so we will do that, but it will take the reinforcement of all of us and all of our families and all of our friends to reinforce that at home so that we can shape the minds of the young people, and we will do our best to shape the minds of those who've already gone astray to try to bring them back. But it will take all of us engaging community, being a competent but compassionate police department. All right.
Thank you. The next person up, I'm hoping that I'm not mispronouncing his or her name, Obadino? Whenever you're ready, Lydia.
Buenas noches a todos. Yo voy a decir como una parte del testimonio que a mí me ha pasado.
I'm going to say, tell my brief story before asking the question.
Y lo voy a decir en español, pero ella me va a traducir. Yo fui víctima en mi trabajo por un compañero que me amenazó con un cuchillo a muerte, y llamé a la policía para que llegara al lugar de los hechos, y el policía pues llegó y vio y tomó decisión, pero no me dio un reporte.
So I was threatened by a coworker, and he pulled a knife on me and threatened that he was going to kill me. So I called the police, and when the police came to assess the situation, he decided not to write a police report.
Nomás le dijo a la persona, te puedes ir, ya no puedes trabajar más en este sitio, pero no me dio ninguna información más de reporte ni nada para poderlo denunciar para que alguien lo pudiera condenar como un crimen.
He simply told my coworker to leave the establishment and gave me no next steps in how to file a report.
Después yo llamé más veces, 3, 4 veces, y nadie pudo hacerme un reporte. Entonces puse la queja con el comisionado y esa persona sí me pudo ayudar y mandó un oficial para que hiciera reporte.
So I traveled to many different places and made many calls in order for someone to support me in doing a report. I finally was able to talk to a supervisor who then connected me to a commissioner, and they supported me.
Pero eso solo las personas que sabemos nuestros derechos, que casa los informa qué tenemos que hacer, pero hay muchas víctimas que no pueden reportar sus cosas, que les suceden por eso.
So I was able to do this because I know my rights, and I was orientated with my rights through CASA, but there's a lot of community members who do not know their rights and don't know the mechanism to ensure that they are able to receive a report.
We'll allow for a couple more minutes because of the translation.
Después de como una semana de tratar en varios sitios, entonces el oficial pues llegó y me dio reporte por la orden del comisionado. Y después de eso tuve otros 3 más incidentes y uno me golpeó una persona con una madera 4x2 en mi pierna y llamé a la policía y también no me quiso auxiliar ni me quiso llevar al hospital porque no tenía un social security ni una tarjeta de seguro.
So that was one of the 4 incidents where I was assaulted. In 3 other situations that I was assaulted, neither of those officers did not want to give me a police report either. In one of those situations, I was brutally assaulted, and the police officer would not call the ambulance because I did not have a social security number or insurance.
Son decisiones que creo que las tiene que tomar otra persona, no la policía. Pues eso es lo que le queremos pedir a usted, que qué cambios puede hacer para que los apoye, no importa la raza o qué religión tengamos o qué idioma hablemos, queremos su ayuda, por favor.
So the decision that the officer made that day to not write me a report, or the other times that I was assaulted to not write me a report, or the comments that the officer made for not calling the ambulance that day, is something that they should not be able to make those decisions. So my question to you is, what are you going to do to support the mechanism of us receiving reports and our support regardless of what language we speak?
Thank you for bringing that to my attention. We want to put in systems of accountability that allow us to know when officers both perform well and when they don't perform well, or when they don't perform at all. And then there's certainly disciplinary actions that can be taken, that will be taken for those who don't perform well or don't perform at all. What I did in New Orleans was we created pamphlets in both Spanish and Vietnamese and put them inside every police station at the desk. And it was our policy that they always had to be there. So any person that went in there that could not speak English but spoke Spanish or Vietnamese had those pamphlets that had their rights on it. And when they requested a police report, the officer knew that they had to take a police report. Outside of the station were directions in Spanish, English, Spanish, and Vietnamese on how to enter the police station to file that police report. I envisioned that something like that could be done here in Baltimore, and we could create a concept that would always allow you to call for a report or to go to a police station and have one taken. And then we can develop consequences and good management that lets us know when it doesn't happen, and then we can know to take the right disciplinary action and training for when it doesn't. But it's all about right now training our department to make sure everyone knows what our policies are, what our protocols are, and that we're following them. Thank you for that.
Welcome to Baltimore.
Thank you.
My name is Earl. I live in Oliver. Oh, sorry. You know, a lot of our open drug markets are well established. They've been here for a while. They're entrenched in our neighborhoods, and you know, people are dying because of the drug market. And I think my question is, what are we going to do about being able to gather the information needed to close down these markets? We love to see patrol. Everyone in my neighborhood, we love patrol. You see a patrol, it's like Christmas when you see a patrol in your neighborhood. But I also know that it takes a lot of intelligence gathering to break up these organizations in order to get them out of our neighborhood. These guys, they adjust. They know where patrols, how they patrol. They got lookouts. They know how to work around patrol. And are you going to give the police officers the intelligence resources they need in our district to make the necessary arrest? And the second part of the question is continuity. We love seeing the same officers. We know people get promoted, they get moved, but we change majors so often. And we need continuity of leadership because it takes time to build relationships with these officers, right? To build that trust, to build it with the majors. It takes time for them to even like you. You know, you rub them the wrong way, and then the next month they're gone, or you build up a good relationship with them, and next month they're gone, or next year they're gone. How can we keep some of these great officers and this command staff in our neighborhoods?
Great questions, two great questions. The first one about the open drug market, certainly patrols are important. High visibility is important because that's a deterrent effect. And there's uniform overt enforcement actions that they're taking all the time. That's happening. It's not happening every time you look at it, and it's not happening every time you stand there to look at it, but it is happening. And they've demonstrated to me with their productivity how often that has happened this year versus last year, because I wanted to know that when we met today. But there are also other types of investigations, not just by us, but our partners in law enforcement, the kind of things that we don't talk about, but that others are joined in this fight and in this enforcement effort, I can assure you. And so right now, I want to make sure that all the efforts of the district, of other entities within our department, with our state partners, and with our federal partners are all aligned and in sync to make sure we're gathering the right intelligence and that we're strategically going after the right people, and that we have the appropriate enforcement action to go after them and capture them and remove them from the streets. And so that's happening. But right now we're making assessments within our department, both organizational capacity and leadership capacity, but then we're working to make sure that all of our federal partners and our efforts with all the other law enforcement agencies are aligned to complete our objectives, and that's to go after the bad actors in Baltimore. Right. Thank you.
Continuity?
Continuity. So that's important. It was important for having continuity at the commissioner level, and it's important having continuity at the district command level. That's extremely important. What I want to make sure we are clear, we never want to hold anybody back that has aspirations to rise up in the department. The goal is to train more leaders. And the goal is for those that do a great job that we fall in love with because they're so engaging and they do such a great job. The goal is for them to train other people to be just like them so that when they leave, another good leader steps right in their footsteps and you don't know the difference. Right. That's the goal. That's what we're trying to create now with this consent decree and this entire culture change and leadership development within the department. That when the commander promotes up or lieutenant becomes a captain or sergeant becomes a lieutenant, and perhaps they're transferred somewhere else because they have aspirations of rising up, that the other people that rise up have been trained and mentored, and it looks and feels the same because the culture has changed, and we've all trained them to do exactly what you're looking for. So while the face of the person has changed, the spirit of the person is still the same.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Abraham, is it Tina?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Abraham Tema. I'm from Guatemala, and I have been here in Baltimore City in McElderry community, working hard every day and working for my community too. And I want to share you a little bit my story with the police, and after that I want to asking you two questions. Couple years ago, I called the police to ask him for help. I want to do in Spanish. I'm sorry, my English. But I'm doing Spanish. Okay, thank you. Llamé a la policía 2 veces. Yo pienso de que las personas llaman a la policía solo por 2 razones.
So in this instance, he's explaining that he called the police on 2 different occasions, and he believed that community members usually call the police for these 2 reasons.
Uno, porque uno es víctima sobre algún crimen o violencia. La otra razón, porque queremos reportar un incidente. Pero ¿qué pasa cuando las personas, las víctimas, llaman a la policía y la policía los victimizan a ellos?
So one of the reasons is someone calls the police because they have been victims of a crime, and the second is because they have been witnesses to a crime. But what happens when they call the police and the police, then they become victims of the police?
La vez pasada 2 veces llamé a la policía, en vez de ayudarme, me hicieron a mí el victimario y me arrestaron sin ninguna razón. Eso me duele mucho porque yo sé que a muchos de los miembros de mi comunidad han pasado y siguen viviendo esta tragedia con nuestra policía en Baltimore City.
So one of the incidents that took place, I was a victim of a crime, and instead of the officer supporting me, he arrested me. And this hurts me because I know that many in my community are experiencing the same treatment.
La última vez que llamé, bueno, cuando perdí toda confianza con la policía porque estaba envuelto en una disputa verbal, entonces para que no llegara a un nivel más alto, llamé a la policía. Llegaron 2, llegó una mujer, una oficial, y me preguntó, ¿eres residente o ciudadano o te va a costar la deportación?
So the time that I was in a verbal dispute, I elected to call the police because I did not want the situation to escalate any further. So when I called the police, the first thing that the woman officer asked me, are you a resident or are you a citizen? Because you know this could cost you your deportation.
Gracias a casa también conozco mis derechos y le dije, tú sabes que hay una orden ejecutiva dada por la alcaldesa de Baltimore City, que tú no puedes preguntar eso. Yo te llamé no para que me hagas esas preguntas, sino que para que me vengas a ayudar. Y entonces no dijo nada más.
So when she asked that to me, thanks to casa, I know my rights. And when she asked that to me, I told her, do you know that there's an executive order passed by the mayor that protects me from you asking me those questions? And after I told her that, she did not say anything more.
Es lamentable que eso sucede. Mi pregunta, después de que termina esta orden, aunque no quisiera que terminara la orden ejecutiva, pues esperemos que ella nos va a decir y tenemos una nueva orden.
So that was the day that I lost faith for the police when that incident happened to me. And so my question to you is, we are hoping that the executive order is improved.
¿Cuánto tiempo usted se tardaría en entrenar a sus oficiales para que no ejercen esa práctica que no les compete? ¿Y cuál es el plan para poder educarlos en ese aspecto.
So after the new executive order is implemented, how long do you envision training the officers in order to ensure that situations like these do not continue to happen? And what is your plan to roll these trainings out?
Para terminar, quiero asegurarme que eso no sucede más con cada uno de los miembros de mi comunidad. Esta práctica de intimidación nos hace a nosotros y no llamar más la policía. Se aumenta el crimen y nos hacemos nosotros más víctimas.
Lydia, we're going to wrap up the question here.
So I asked this question because I want to ensure that members of my community feel safe to call the police, because when we're asked for immigration status, we're intimidated.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. So when I started on Monday as the commissioner, as the acting commissioner, one of the first things we talked about that I was briefed on was the department's immigration policy. In addition to the executive order, there's a policy being crafted by the department that's probably complete by the end of this week that really is a mirror from the policy in New Orleans, which was one of the first in the country, that restricts officers from asking immigration status. And then it is our ability to train the department immediately once the policy becomes effective. So the day that the policy is effective, the training begins for the entire department to make sure that everybody is trained and is compliant with the policy, from the newest recruit all the way up to me, that restricts officers from asking about immigration status, because we want to be able to know who are victims of crime. We want to know who are witnesses of crime, because without knowing that, we really have no idea how much crime is being committed. So we need to know that so that we can accurately report it. And so, look, we assure you that that policy was being written before I got here. It's being completed this week. Once it's completed, we will train the entire department. That training begins immediately. And so as officers come to work every day, they will receive that training, and then there will be certainly disciplinary actions taken for those who violate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carter?
Good evening, Mayor Pugh and Councilman Stokes and everyone here, and Commissioner Harrison. My name is Sister Audrey Carter. I worship in the Oliver community, and I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces. So my question to you, I just want you to know I'm here to help you. I want you to know also my son was killed in June of 2018. And since that time, I've really had a rough time with the police department and trying to get answers, trying to get responses. And I want those that I have contacted already know I'm still not getting answers. So they also know, this is my son, that I've also gone out in the community to help your police officers and everybody else know that my son will not be forgotten. This is what happened. I've even stopped some of your police officers, not necessarily stopped them, but saw them in police cars and shared this with them and asked them if they could help me spread this. So my question, one of my questions to you is that with the accountability-driven leadership, I pray that you will have everyone under your leadership treat grieving families with more respect and sensibility when it comes to these kind of issues. Because again, it's been 6-7 months, and I apologize to the gentleman who lost his for 4 years or whatever, didn't get responses, but I'm out looking, I'm out helping. So I'm looking for answers. Also, one thing. I'm also on another tip because I have a grandson that I'm semi-raising, which is my son's son. And I'm going into more stores that are allowing children to smoke in them and loiter in them and do all sorts of things in them. And even though you say you have job opportunities available for him, I have a grandson who is just 13, although he looks like he's about 16 because he's a big boy. And those job opportunities won't apply to him. But I need something for him. And with you guys locking people up for, I'm sorry, not you, but the police locking people up for smoking and marijuana, and then the state's attorneys not prosecuting, that's confusing things. So my question on that is, what will you do to have officers enforce the law without institutionalizing even more of our youth to give them a criminal record, and then that will also prevent them from working?
Thank you.
Good questions. And to you also, we're sorry about the loss of your son. And we want to make sure that our detectives are thorough, competent, but also compassionate. Even when we do a good job, not following up, sometimes you won't even know we're doing a good job. And sometimes the lack of response will give the impression that we didn't do anything. Don't know what happened, but what I'll say is, in this culture change and in this professional development, it's our goal to make sure that we're competent, but we're compassionate. In that compassion, certainly what you said helps me now know we need to build systems of accountability that we can follow up with people and stay in touch. Even though we get busy, even though we're working hard, we're overworked, we still need to be able to stay in touch and keep you informed, even if keeping you informed means there's nothing new to report. At least that phone call, I think, is what I'm hearing. Yes. Now, with regard to those stores on private property that are allowing people to do things, we're taking actions against many of those stores. In our walk yesterday, we talked about that. There are many stores that are found to be in violation, that actions from the city are forthcoming. When it comes to the state's attorney's decision to not prosecute, that was not a change in the law. That's just a change in her office's policy to decide not to prosecute. According to Maryland state law, it's still a criminal violation. So, but I want to be clear. We're not just arresting people for just smoking weed, and that has been reduced from the first day I got here on Monday. They've demonstrated to me that's been reduced greatly from what it used to be. I met with her on our first day, and we agreed, the state's attorney, and we agreed to communicate with one another about those policy changes from her that affect us, policy changes from us that affect her, and we agreed to work together to create the correct path and deployment for what police should do. But we first got to really align with the law, because our policy on what we should do is mirrored off the state law, and we can't put the police in a position where now they're violating the law. Now, certainly we don't want to criminalize and give kids criminal records that would disqualify them from getting good jobs. But smoking weed and testing positive for them would disqualify them from getting good jobs. We clear on that? But great point, and we're sorry about your loss.
Thank you, PC.
My name is Janice Jacobs Hudson. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm a community advocate, president of Ashland Avenue Association Incorporated. My concern, the gentleman, I'm gonna piggyback on something that you just said in reference to our officers coming to the districts, getting to know us, building up a trust in us, and we lose them. And I understand people need to be promoted. I do understand that, and we do want them to be promoted. However, the mayor, she's here for 4 years. Our council people are here for 4 years. People get to know people, and then in 1 year they're gone, and we're the ones that end up having to get to know them again, let them know who the people are. And I think there should be some type of incentive or some type of way that you can let them stay longer in our communities and at our districts, because it's a vicious cycle with Eastern. Eastern has very good commanders, very good officers. We are a family, and what ends up happening is everyone that come, I tell them, I'm the first one to say, you be gone soon. Oh no, Miss Hudson, we're not going nowhere. And before you know it, they're gone. And it's not funny behind the simple fact, you have people who develop trust that don't trust, that begin to trust, and then you take them away from us. And I understand the fact that they need to be promoted, but I think, and you can do it, could come up with some type of incentive to let them stay there longer and get promoted. And still get the salary that they would deserve because they know us. They know the people, they know the drug dealers, they know the areas, they're familiar with stuff, and we don't have to keep starting all over again.
So it sounds like interested in the PC's perspective on the provision of incentives for officers to stay in the districts where they are. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
PC?
Good question, and thank you for your passion. And there's already some incentive already that the mayor has instituted for people to be in patrol, a pay incentive. And so that's already in place. Now, certainly, our officers are doing a great job, and I can tell they're doing a great job by your passion and how you feel about them. There's a possibility that each of them, as they get promoted, they can stay, but when it comes to the commander is, if the commander gets promoted, the commander's going to a whole nother level that's above a district level. And so it's not quite the same for the commander. For perhaps the captain, lieutenants, sergeants, and officers, perhaps
so
that's
you make it the same.
Perhaps it's a possibility.
I'm asking you to come up with something where they can stay because they know the community and they know what's going on. And what you're doing is you're starting all over again, and people, it's hard for people to trust.
I agree with you.
So come up with something to allow them to stay.
So Ms. Hudson, it sounds like while the PC is new in role, you're interested in him coming back to the community with some ideas around what incentives look like. Is that right? I heard you say you figure it out and come back. So I'm trying to make notes around stuff that he's going to need to come back and talk to
It's
you all
real
about.
Clear. I think he know what I'm saying.
Okay, and I want to make sure that we get to the next folks, so I'm just
Yes, I think you know what I'm saying. And also,
thank you,
I
ma'am.
want to talk about something after the meeting, because sometimes people be in meetings, and I would like to address something with you after the meeting.
Happy to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson. All right, the next 5 residents are Cynthia Gross. Okay. I'm gonna call the next 4 after Ms. Gross. Lonia Mixon, Patrick Tong, first initial F as in Frank, last name Cole, Ty Johnson.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Good
Okay.
evening.
So my name is Cynthia Gross, and I'm a resident of the CARE community. So I'm here speaking on behalf of myself tonight. So the CARE community is a very small community in East Baltimore. But before I came, I pulled some data, and it seems that we had a 13% decrease in crime from 2018 to today, last year. However, in 2016, we had some trying times. Now, I attribute the increase in crime in 2016 and 2017 and some of 2018 to some of the policies that were initiated at the administrative level. I think around that time, we had VRI zones implemented. CARE is in between several. So some communities were flooded with resources while other communities did not get any resources or any additional help. And I've heard you say tonight a couple times that you're going to have a system of accountability. And I'm trying to understand what is the feedback loop to tell you if things are working or not working. Because honestly, no one asks me if a policy is working or not working. It's only if I bug Major Wells or someone else that maybe I'll get some kind of response that things aren't working correctly in my neighborhood. So I'm trying to understand what will be the feedback loop for you to determine if your policies or procedures are actually working or not for communities.
Great question, and thank you for your involvement. So the systems of accountability I was talking about were systems of accountability regarding performance, so that I can know, and the department can know, and the citizens can know when people are performing well, when they're not performing well, when they're not performing at all. Now, there are other systems that are already in place that we need to enhance and then perfect, like the CRC and the citizens that are tied to each district, where you have open lines of communication and access to your district commander, to the staff and the rank and file within the district every single day, and at all the meetings where all of the information is supposed to be shared with the residents who live in that district. And then as we improve on this technology platform, you're going to see everything we do made available to you electronically, so that everything we're doing inside of our offices, you'll be able, in the future, just go on your computer and see what it is we're doing, the results of our actions, or the results of our lack of actions. You'll be able to see that. And then we'll know what to do about it, how to correct it, how to hold people accountable, and that transparency will be available to you to see what we did about problems.
So you're talking about action, but I'm talking about your actual policies and procedures, because again, if I know, just like with the VRI zone, if I know that Milton Mofford and all these other communities around me are being flooded with resources, but we're not, and I'm seeing an increase in crime, and I may be communicating to Major Wells, but I know Mr. Major Wells didn't put that policy in place, right? So at a certain point, I'm going to stop talking to Major Wells. I want to talk to the person who put the policy in place and who's not giving me the resources that I need. So how do I get to you or other people to say it's not working for me?
Well, first of all, meetings like this are important, and I'm happy to be here. I'll be at more. There'll be more meetings like this. But if you make a request through the major, and the major tells you he can't give it to you because I didn't give it to him, then he's going to connect you to me. And you're always welcome to send something to my office. You're welcome to send something to my office.
Ms. Mixon?
So good evening. It's past my bedtime. I am a Baltimore City teacher, so I am good with time. I'm not going to take a long time. So I'm a transplant. I moved here from Philadelphia approximately 14 years ago. And so working with youth in Philadelphia and working with youth in Baltimore City, it's always important to me. Yes. So as a college student at Temple, we had the Lex Street murders. It was probably one of the worst murders in Philadelphia. And when you see one of your students killed, so you know how cops tell you they see things? So I've seen things too. And so when I teach from my heart, and it's always for Baltimore City. So I will say this as a comment. I love Mayor Pugh, and she's Pennsylvania too. And so I've seen things in North Philly, I've seen things in West Philly, I've seen things in Baltimore. So the culture here is similar to Philadelphia. My question is, what are you gonna do? Because in Philly, we did PAL. And the only PAL thing that I remember is when I first started, I was at Furman Templeton, Pennsylvania and Dauphin. So Baltimoreans look out for you when you're a transplant. They were like, you going to Pennsylvania and Dauphin? You sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to teach over there. And they had a great PAL center, but I don't really see it in other parts of Baltimore, so I don't know if you had PAL centers in New Orleans, but I know it was big in Philly. And how are you going to get the youth? Because it's a distrust amongst youth for police. So that's my question to you.
Thank you, good question, and thank you for your service as a teacher. I think I know what you mean when you say PAL centers. We did not have that in New Orleans, but there was a partnership between the police department and the recreation department, where police officers were joined with members of the recreation department and vice versa, where there were opportunities for us to engage with kids at playgrounds, at schools, after hours, and on the weekends. And so while there may not have been PAL centers, there were certainly, with both mayors that I worked for, opportunities for the recreation department to be part of the police department. That's actually in place here. All the city departments work together. And in our VRI walk yesterday, recreation and parks were with us. And when we walked past the park and we saw things that need to be corrected, the mayor charged the person in charge to have it corrected. And there were a number of kids that we went to a community center to see. And so all of that's working together, part of the VRI, the Violence Reduction Initiative. And the police are a part of it. And so all that's part of the holistic, multi-disciplinary approach to dealing with the issues on the front end that help to prevent kids from making bad decisions to commit crime in the first place. Thank you.
So I'm gonna say, whenever, and I hope you get the job, you can come to the Stadium School. I'm the 6th grade math teacher. You're always welcome to come to my class. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mixon. And your name, ma'am?
Welcome to the city of Baltimore.
Thank you so much.
I have so many issues that I cannot possibly touch on most of them, but I will point out a couple of bullets. Some of these police officers that are being hired, I know that they are low-staffed, but some of the police officers that they are hiring, they're not even qualified for the job. A lot of times when you call the policemen and they come out, they take their own personal opinions about what should be done instead of following the policies. I do know this, for the city of Baltimore, when you go and approach the majors, the captains, the sergeants, the lieutenants, they cover up for each other. The cover up has got to stop. It's unacceptable. And when you diligently do what you're supposed to do, and you continually get the door shut in your face, that's a problem. But I don't want to go away. I do not want to go away. And I think sometimes when you do what you do and they do what they do, they want you to go away. But I just don't want to accept that because it's unacceptable. So one of my questions to you is, when a citizen of Baltimore do all that we can do, and we go through the proper procedures and the protocol or whatever they tell you to do, and then you still don't get no resolution or no results, what do we do?
Ma'am, would you mind sharing your name with us?
I'm sorry, my name is Francis Coles.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And you're absolutely right. First of all, don't go away. We don't want you to go away. We want you right here. And what you described is totally unacceptable. It was unacceptable in my previous career. It's unacceptable now. That's what this whole reform initiative is about. That's what this whole culture change is about. Now, it's not all officers, but the ones you experience, that's totally unacceptable. And we want to know about that. That's why there's a big investment in those body cameras, so that we can know those things that before the cameras, it was impossible to know. And when we conduct audits and reviews of that body camera, and when you file a complaint, and then we go back and look at that footage, and then we find that you asked us to do something that we refused to do or we did it wrong, that's what this whole reform is about, to build those systems of accountability, to know that, and to go back and then make it right. Retrain people so that they know the right thing to do, discipline people so that they know their consequences for those actions or lack of actions. That's what this whole consent decree is about. What we're trying to do in addition to that is just change the culture in the minds of our people so that we want to do better. Not that we're being made to do better, because we are being made to do it, but we should want to do it.
We should want to.
We should want to do it.
I also have another issue.
Ma'am?
Oh, really, it'll be really quick. When you do file the complaints, even with internal affairs, they're all in cahoots together. I'm telling you, listen, one other thing. Are you going to be accessible to the citizens of Baltimore? Because me personally, I would like to see you. I would like to talk to you, and I hope I'm able, but even when we had other commissioners and I was trying to get to them, guess what? I couldn't get to them. You have to go through the sergeant, you got to go through the major, go through all that, and guess what? Still can't get to the commissioner. No, unacceptable.
Thank you, Ms. Cole.
Thank you.
Have you ever been this close to the commissioners in the past?
No, I have not.
Come here.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I want to have a personal meeting with you. Are you able to do that with me,
Mr.
please?
Saul?
We're doing it right now, and we'll do it again.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And I'm gonna hold you to that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Your name, sir?
Good evening, Commissioner. My name is Ty Johnson. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You alluded to your previous career. I want to ask about that. What were some of the most prescient and/or controversial challenges that you faced, whether it be administrative, whether it be operational, whether it be technologically? However, how did you address that through policy? And now, given that you have some sort of lay of the land through various meetings, various research, various travels, what have you, how will you import that experience here in Baltimore? And do you believe that that experience through policy that you're going to implement will work? And that's my question, essentially.
The most challenging.
Yeah. The most challenging.
Man, first of all, New Orleans is a lot like Baltimore. It was all challenging. And it's hard to really narrow down. Because as the mayor and I talk every day, and as the council members and I have been talking all week, you know, dealing with the crime issue is a big challenge. Changing a culture in a department that has 3,000 members is a big challenge. It's like trying to turn a cruise ship around that's stuck in quicksand. It's a big challenge, but we can do it. I think cops are generally good across the country at, hear me out. We're generally good at dealing with crime issues. We've learned to do that. We're generally not good at supervising people, managing and being good leaders. Which when we don't do that, then the other part drops too. Because then we don't catch mistakes, we don't do anything about it when people make them. But you have to work on all that together. I think the most challenging thing I had to do was change a culture in an agency where the senior members were locked in and you couldn't move them and you couldn't get rid of them, and all they did was show up for an hour and went home. And then I had to go and fight with civil service and the labor groups to undo that so that I could appoint the brightest and the best people to rise up to leadership positions, put them in leadership and hold them accountable while still finding something really creative for those other members to do. And fought against them while they fought against me and tried to pull us down and undo all the good work we did. That was probably the most challenging thing. Because in the day-to-day, the officers just want to go do the right thing. But when people are pulling against you and trying to work hard to stop the good because they don't get their way, that was challenging. Especially when it was me that was appointed over all of them. That was challenging. Thank you for that.
Mr. Tall, before you speak, I'm going to call the last group of folks. We've made it through the list. I am going to hold you to your 2 minutes so that we can honor and respect this space. So after Patrick Tong, we will have Melvin Velenes Bay, Beatrice Bastiani, and Shorty. Sir?
I'm Patrick, and I live in East Baltimore, across from the Johns Hopkins Medical School campus. It is truly gracious of you, Commissioner Harrison, for you to join us in Baltimore. I'm looking forward to your reenactment of the miracle of a few officers and even fewer detectives to wean Baltimore of its feast of murders. The viability of Baltimore is one pillar that rests on your shoulder. The other pillars rest on Mayor Pugh's shoulder. I don't know much about policing, and I'm not going to comment about that, but I do have a few personal experiences that I'd like to share. I was a burglary victim more than once, and my home, being across from the medical institution, is under surveillance of the Hopkins security camera system. I urged the detectives to reach out to Hopkins to review the footages. After a lot of urging on my part, I learned on the fourth time that I urged them that the footages have been erased. During a second burglary, I called Hopkins security myself. I needed to know where the cog is in the wheel. Hopkins informed me that my door, through which the burglar passed through, is indeed under their surveillance. However, it is simply too much work to review the footages. Sorry. Once I was out of the city at the time, and my neighbor called me to tell me that there's a burglary in progress. Being that I'm out of the 911 call system, I reached out to Eastern District directly, 410-396-2433, committed to memory. I was informed that I'm calling the wrong department. I'm in the Southern District. I reassured them that that is not the case. I'm in the Eastern District. Such misinformation happened 3 times.
Mr. Tong?
Subsequently,
do you have a question for the PC?
Subsequently, I tried to reach the detective.
Mr.
I
Tong?
called for 2 days, 3 hours on the phone, I was only then able to get the name of the detective who's on my case. So my concern is that there must be a better mechanism for communication between victims and the officers. And my other concern is the impending Johns Hopkins police bill. We don't know whether it's going to pass. If it passes, I'm concerned that I will be considered one of the most well-guarded neighborhoods. At the juxtaposition of the Eastern District, the Southern District, and the Johns Hopkins Police, I'm concerned that I will be so well-guarded, and yet at the same time not guarded at all. Everybody thinks it's someone else's job, and I'm very fearful of that.
Thank you so much, sir.
Certainly, we want to make sure that we improve on our efficiency. And how we communicate, how we receive information, how we give information back, and how we can stay in touch with victims and witnesses and any resident that has information. Certainly that's an area that needs improvement. I appreciate you bringing that to us. That's a system of accountability that connects victims to the police department in real time. What happened at Johns Hopkins I really can't speak to, but I was with the president this morning in our meeting with all the university presidents, and then we talked about the relationship between Johns Hopkins and the Baltimore Police Department, what it would look like, how it would be managed, how it would be supervised and evaluated, and what consequences would happen when things go wrong, should that bill pass and that happen. And we don't know what that is, but we had that conversation today. What the president committed to us was working together to figure the answers out, and that they would, I submitted to them that the Baltimore police would have ultimate control over the evaluation of all of that, and that they would have, if it passes, and only if, they would have very limited jurisdiction and authority.
Thank you, sir. We're going to
have a simple suggestion on how we could communicate with the officers.
Sir, if you wouldn't mind checking in with the police commissioner, we're meeting after. Thank you so much. The next name on the list was Melvin Valentes-Bay.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And welcome to Baltimore City, also known as Charm City.
Thank you, sir.
First and foremost, my name is Melvin Valentes-Bay. My temple is located at 1055 North Milton Avenue, and we're in between two communities. We are the Moorish Science Temple of America. We have been a staple in this community. Our first temple was established in 1925, 705 South Sharp Street, and it has moved all around Baltimore, but we find ourselves located at 1055 North Milton Avenue. So now that you're here, there have been several federal guidelines from a report that's been put out by the Southern Poverty Law Center that addresses sovereign citizens, and some of these individuals have crept into the Moorish Science Temple of America, left, taking the teachings, and now they're teaching it to other people, and they're at saying that they are able to drive without driver's license, and sometimes members who are citizens who are Moorish Americans get caught by police officers and other government officials, and basically they are trampling on our rights guaranteed to us by the Baltimore City Charter, Maryland State Constitution, and the United States Constitution, First Amendment. So I'm asking you here, what programs will you have to allow us to come and to educate your officers on how to make the distinctions and create some type of citizen liaison to also educate city council members and maybe even federal government? I know that's not in your jurisdiction, but to lead to being able to make the distinction, because a lot of our rights are not being met here in the city and in the state of Maryland, as well as across the United States. So that's my question.
Very good. Thank you for bringing that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Certainly, anytime there's an issue like that where we need to train our department to be able to determine the difference between those who are abiding and those who are misusing those things to not abide, we want to make sure we educate our officers so we can identify that, so we respect the rights of all people. And certainly we're open to education so that we can train our members to identify exactly what you're talking about. I'm open to that. And certainly we can find a way to incorporate that so that all the members of the department can recognize that, and then recognize those who want to abuse that and know what that looks like when they're confronted with it. that should be happening everywhere, but it's not. But thank you for bringing it to our attention. It's something that we need to certainly look at so that we can be educated on how to know the difference.
Beatrice Bastiani.
I'm Beatrice Bastiani, elder at Powerhouse World Ministries. We welcome you.
Thank you.
Want to commend the work that your officers are doing now at North and Gay and Bel Air Road. We see the difference. Thank you very much. My question is not a very deep one, but it is important to me. Baltimore is a city of neighborhoods, and each neighborhood is very unique. And because we've seen so much change recently, my question tonight, being Valentine's Day, is are you committed to staying here long enough to get to know each neighborhood, get to know us and get to love us? Because we've had so many heartbreaks from people leaving us.
I'm not going to break your heart on Valentine's Day. We got on the road Wednesday. We got my son married last Saturday. Got on the road Wednesday, got here Thursday night. Back home in New Orleans, we're about to hire contractors to do some touch-up work because I'm selling that house. I'm already moved in and locked in to at least 1 year lease.
Okay.
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay.
I can't go home. This is my home.
Thank you.
This is my home. And yes, I'm committed. We are committed
Thank you very much. Welcome.
to being here. First of all, we understand the dynamic of what's in front of us. It's a heavy lift, but it's an opportunity. And I would not have wasted this mayor's time by saying yes if I didn't intend to stay until it's done.
Okay.
Until it's done. And when it's done, when it is done, let me make a prediction. When it is done, somebody from somewhere else will reach down and hire a Baltimore Police Department to go fix their city's police department.
Well, again, welcome, and you're welcome at Powerhouse anytime.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Shorty, you are the last one. Please know that I'm going to hold you to 2 minutes because we've got some checking out to do with the PC.
Mic check. All right, you better, I ain't going nowhere.
Good evening.
We're gonna be serious about this here. Baltimore is a reactive city, not a proactive city. And you say you're gonna reform your police department, right? Correct?
That's what I'm here to do.
All right, so the Policeman Bill of Rights, which protects your Baltimore Police Department, was written years and years ago. How do you feel about the Policeman's Bill of Rights in this? You're gonna do investigations and you wanna proceed to clean up the corruption in your department. You gotta do something about getting rid of the Policeman's Bill of Rights. Feel me?
I feel you. I realize that there are challenges.
No. Before we do this dog and pony show, I want to talk about the Policeman's Bill of Rights. That gives an officer 10 days to sit here and give a statement. But if I shoot somebody, I got to do mine right now. You can't insulate the police if you want them to be treated equally. You feel me? You got to set the ground. Now, if you look around this room, you got policemen in here, all y'all in here. You know what I'm saying? But I don't see none of your white police officers in here from the FOP here. You know what I'm saying? So you got a racial problem too. And that Policeman's Bill of Rights was set in a racial era.
I got you. My job right now is to...
I'm going.
No, I gave you the courtesy of looking at you.
Yes, sir. And I gave you the courtesy.
All right. My job right now is to assess what we have, who we have, to take this consent decree and implement this consent decree, to change the culture, to reduce violent crime. All of that's being done right now, and that's what we're working on. Certainly, that's a challenge. That's something that we got to work with. There are a lot of reforms that have to be made. Whatever it takes and whatever help I need and whoever I got to go to, as high up as I need to go, that make sure that these officers are safe and can do their job and are successful, and the citizens are safe and protected, and we do it together. I believe there are members in the Baltimore Police Department that want the Baltimore Police Department to change.
Yeah, they is. They
I believe that.
They is. Some of them in the room.
I believe that.
But the ones that's keeping it from changing is in the seats that ain't in the room.
Well, let's start right here, right now.
That's why I'm here.
One step, one handshake at a time.
Ain't nothing changing about here.
Thank you. Ms. Redmond?
Hi. Good evening, sir. And thank you, Mayor Pugh. My name is Nia Redmond, and I'm the founder of the East Baltimore Historical Library, and I grew up in this particular neighborhood, Berea. And when I look at from a historical lens, what has happened in just this district, Eastern District, so much has happened that most of us are nervous, especially when we hear that they're thinking about relocating Eastern District Police Station from Edison Highway. That's a concern. And I hope if that is in the works, that you will at least make sure that Berea residents are at the table with that discussion. Pointedly, I phoned the police about 45 days ago because I was having some problems with one of my family members whom I just brought home from a nursing home. The patient is 75 years old. He suffers from dementia, so he can't be let out to wander on his own. So I was having issues with him, so I put a call in the Eastern District, spoke to a nice person there. I explained to the man, this is a 75-year-old gentleman. He's on a walker. He can't walk very fast, but I'm having problems trying to keep him on the porch. When your officers showed up, one in particular, he was not one of our finest, let's say that. This young man told me, after I explained the circumstance, that he had evaluated my brother and he found him competent. So I asked the officer if he also was a part-time psychiatrist. I just couldn't understand a police officer responding in that situation and saying that he had interviewed my brother and he found him competent. So I asked him if he knew Major Russell, Colonel Russell. I asked if he knew him because when I saw him, I was going to explain that I met one of his brightest coming out of Eastern District. I had a hard time trying to give him to give me a police report. He gave me a police report, I believe, once I asked him if he were familiar with the consent decree. Then his face sort of changed and he decided to give me a police report. When you look in our community, this Berea neighborhood, a lot of senior citizens in here, a lot of people suffering from early and different phases of dementia. So when we call the police and the police doesn't handle the situation appropriately, it says that they need some more training. I don't know what kind of juju you brought up here from New Orleans, but I'm gonna tell you what, Baltimore is in real trouble. When you have the citizens don't trust the police, when I'm afraid to even phone the police, when they're gonna tell me they examined somebody with dementia and they found them competent. I did tell that officer that I was gonna come up here and make sure I gave you the police report from that incident because he's one officer that really needs some attention because it could have gone really bad. The other comment, and this is not a question, this is a comment. Johns Hopkins Private Police Department is a real challenge for some of us. If they're going to pay for their private police, and then they expect you to then interact with them, and you're on our dime, the citizens' dime, that means we're contributing, because we're taxpayers, to their private police. So we're concerned about that, and we also are concerned that if they do get that bill, and they get the private police, that they definitely come under your supervision. Can you guarantee that? Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Redmond.
Well, to start with the last thing, certainly, we don't know if that's going to pass, but I certainly can't guarantee that. What I can say is that this morning, we met with the president of Johns Hopkins, and we discussed that. And we discussed options of what it could look like. Not that it will, but what it could look like. And I gave him my opinion of how it should be structured. Now, that's what I gave him this morning in the presence of the mayor and all the other presidents of the universities. The other point you made was What you explained to me just now is totally unacceptable. It's bad, it's horrible, it's totally unacceptable. And yes, that officer and all of us need more training on how to deal with not just patients with dementia, but all types of issues that we should be able to recognize and handle accordingly. And no, an officer is not supposed to make a medical diagnosis, and that's improper, irregular, and just wrong. And that needs to be brought to our attention so that we can correct that through both training and perhaps discipline as well. All of that. And thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you. So before we close out for tonight, just a couple of things from me, and then I'm going to turn it back over to the PC so that he can recap what he heard from you all tonight. You all have evaluation forms, and your feedback's really important. We have a few more sessions to go, and we're interested in your perspective on how this session went so that we can make adjustments for the next ones. The PC wants to continue to hear from you, so there are flyers on the table for the next session. And if he and I have to be there, we're welcoming everyone in this room to be there with us.
So this was great. Thank you so much. Let me just recap just a little bit. Thank you, Mayor, for bringing us together. Thank you, council people. We really appreciate your support to all of our officers, to all the residents that live in this community. Tonight, we talked about the community wants to be more engaged and more utilized. Certainly, we're going to make sure that that happens. Fully staffing to patrol. High priority, we want to make sure we do that. I heard you. Restoring trust in the police department. Quite a few people talked about the lack of trust, and they're concerned about our ability to restore trust. Certainly that's going to happen. We have the really bright people working with our consent decree. Thank you for being with us tonight. That's a high priority for us. We're doing that. Open air drug markets. There's work that's being done right now in this district, in all the districts, the work that you see and the work that you don't see, and we're working on that. Distrust in the police department by the immigrant community. We talked about that. There's a policy that's about to be erected in the police department with training to the entire department that protects you from being asked about your immigration status. Residents want to see more proactive policing. Certainly that's coming. We're working to recruit, hire, and train more officers. We're working to retain the good officers that we have. And we're working to civilianize the department to free up time so that we can put more focus on patrol by giving those administrative tasks to civilians that we want to hire, thereby giving us the ability to have more proactive policing. Culture change in the department, policing the police. Certainly that's something that's important to us. It's a mandate in the consent decree. You can look for structural changes within OPR or the internal affairs to make sure it's more robust, effective, and efficient. And then supporting returning individuals to minimize recidivism. Very good point. Very good point. Thank you for that. That's just important on the back end as changing the culture on the front end. I want to thank you. Thank you, Short. I want to thank you and look forward to all of you coming tonight. And we welcome all of you to join us at our next community meeting. Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you. Let's give the commissioner to be a big round of applause. As of me. Let me also say, can we give Shantae Guy, our MC, a big round of applause, please? Organizer. And our Office of Community Engagement, Allie Smith, thank you so much. I also see members of the Violence Reduction Initiative, thank you all as well. But I also have to give a real shout out to the Office of Neighborhoods. You all step forward just a little bit because they're the ones who help organize, make sure that you all get the information. These are young people who are working in the Office of Neighborhoods, who are in touch with you, in touch with our neighborhoods, in touch with our communities. And you know, the reason that I love them so much is because I tell them, I say, I don't need to see y'all at 9 o'clock in the morning because y'all need to be in the communities at night. And they do it. So thank you all, thank you. And thank you all for being here.